The polished mahogany of my desk felt cold against my palms, a stark contrast to the simmering heat that pulsed through me. It had been a particularly trying day, the board meeting a monotonous drone punctuated only by the rhythmic tapping of my perfectly manicured nails against the tabletop. My gaze drifted towards the window, the cityscape a blur of gray against the bruised twilight sky. Below, the city lights flickered to life, a million tiny stars against the encroaching darkness. My reflection stared back at me from the window pane. A woman on the cusp of 50 meticulously maintained a picture of success. My husband, a renowned surgeon, would no doubt approve. He always did. But approval, I realized with a chilling clarity, was a poor substitute for passion. My marriage, a gilded cage of comfort and routine, had long since lost its spark. The fireworks had fizzled out years ago, replaced by a comfortable, predictable hum. Sex had become a chore, a perfunctory act to be ticked off the to-do list. A low growl rumbled from my stomach, a stark reminder that I hadn't eaten all day. I pushed back from the desk, the polished leather of my chair groaning in protest. As I rose, my eyes inevitably fell upon his office, the door ajar, a sliver of light escaping the gloom within. My stepson, Ethan, was a rising star in the company, his youthful energy a stark contrast to the staid atmosphere of the executive floor. He was a whirlwind of ambition and charm, his dark hair perpetually tousled, his eyes the color of stormy seas. He had joined the company a year ago, his presence a constant reminder of the fractured family dynamics that had led to this peculiar arrangement. My marriage to his father, a whirlwind romance that had swept me off my feet, had left a trail of wreckage in its wake. Ethan, a sullen teenager at the time, had never fully forgiven me for disrupting his life, for replacing his mother, the vibrant, free-spirited artist who had succumbed to a tragic illness. Guilt, a constant, insidious companion, gnawed at me. I tried to be a good stepmother, a supportive presence in his life, but the chasm between us remained, a silent, unspoken tension that hung heavy in the air. Curiosity, a dangerous siren song, pulled me towards his office. The door creaked open, the muted glow of the computer screen illuminating the room. Ethan sat hunched over his desk, his brow furrowed in concentration. But as I drew closer, my breath hitched in my throat. He wasn't working. On the screen, a graphic image flickered to life, a woman with impossibly long legs writhing under a man who seemed to be, well, enjoying himself immensely. A low, guttural moan escaped Ethan's lips, his eyes fixed on the screen, a primal hunger etched on his face. Shock, a jolt of icy cold, pierced through me. Disgust followed, a bitter taste in my mouth. But then an unexpected sensation, a strange, unsettling arousal, began to stir within me. I watched, mesmerized as the scene unfolded, a forbidden thrill coursing through my veins. The image on the screen was a stark contrast to the sterile, predictable routine of my own bedroom. It was raw, passionate, unrestrained. A wave of longing washed over me, a yearning for something I hadn't felt in years, a genuine, unadulterated desire. Ethan, oblivious to my presence, continued to watch, his breathing heavy, his body trembling with a silent internal storm. I found myself strangely drawn to him, not the ambitious young executive, but the raw, vulnerable creature consumed by desire. He was beautiful, in a rough-hewn, untamed way. His jawline was sharp, his lips full and sensual. A stray lock of hair fell across his forehead, obscuring his vision, and he impatiently brushed it aside, revealing a glimpse of the intense focus in his eyes. My gaze lingered on his broad shoulders, the muscles taut beneath the crisp white shirt. A shiver ran down my spine, a potent mix of fear and exhilaration. I was trespassing, a voyeur in his most private moments. Yet, instead of recoiling, I found myself inexplicably drawn closer. He shifted in his seat, a low groan escaping his lips. His hand reached out, hovering over the keyboard, his fingers tracing the edge of the desk, a primal need evident in his every movement. Suddenly he turned, his eyes widening in surprise. I stood frozen, my heart pounding like a war drum against my ribs. I'm so sorry, I stammered, my voice trembling. I didn't mean to. I didn't know you were. He stared at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else. A flicker of something akin to amusement? It's okay, he managed, his voice rough. I wasn't expecting company. He quickly closed the laptop screen, the abrupt darkness throwing the room into shadows. I should go, I mumbled, turning to flee. Wait, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. Don't go. I hesitated, my curiosity battling with my fear. He rose to his feet, towering over me. His eyes, no longer filled with shock, held a strange intensity. Come in, he said, his voice a low, husky invitation, and I did. I stepped into his office, the air thick with unspoken desires. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing us in a bubble of shared secrets. The air in his office, usually crisp and sterile, was now thick with a tension that crackled between us. We stood facing each other, a silent, charged current passing between us. His eyes, the color of stormy seas, held mine captive, a raw, primal hunger gleaming within. I felt a tremor run through me, a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. This was forbidden territory, a dangerous game we were playing. Yet a part of me, a part I hadn't acknowledged in years, yearned to step over the line. He reached out, his fingers brushing against my cheek, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down my spine. You're beautiful, he murmured, his voice rough with suppressed desire. The words, simple yet profound, struck me like a thunderbolt. My husband, a man of logic and reason, rarely uttered such sentiments. His compliments were usually reserved for my professional achievements, my impeccable wardrobe, my ability to effortlessly navigate the social whirl. But Ethan saw me. He saw the woman beneath the carefully constructed facade, the woman who yearned for passion, for adventure, for a taste of the forbidden. His touch lingered, a silent invitation. I felt a strange pull towards him, an irresistible force that defied logic and reason. I shouldn't be here, I whispered, my voice barely audible. He smiled, a slow, predatory smile that sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I know, he agreed, his voice husky. But I want you here. And with that, he pulled me towards him, his arms encircling me in a tight embrace. The scent of his cologne, a blend of wood and spice, filled my senses, intoxicating and disorienting. His lips met mine, a fierce, demanding kiss that took my breath away. It was a whirlwind, a tempest of emotions, shock, fear, and an exhilarating sense of freedom. I gasped, my hands instinctively reaching for him, tangling in his hair. He tasted of coffee and forbidden secrets, his tongue a playful invader, exploring every corner of my mouth. I moaned, lost in the sensation, the years of suppressed desire exploding within me. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine, a question lingering in their depths. I nodded, unable to speak, my body trembling with a need I hadn't known existed. He led me to the sofa, his touch possessive, his movements sure and confident. He was a whirlwind, a force of nature, taking me by storm. I lost myself in the sensation, the years of stifled desire erupting in a torrent of passion. He was masterful, his hands exploring every curve of my body, his lips leaving a trail of fire in their wake. I cried out, arching my back, surrendering completely to the sensation. He was everything my husband wasn't, passionate, intense, utterly uninhibited. He moved with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, his body a symphony of strength and grace. I felt raw, exposed, utterly vulnerable, yet strangely exhilarated. The office, a sterile space of glass and chrome, transformed into a forbidden sanctuary, a haven of illicit pleasure. We explored each other, our bodies a map to be charted, our senses ignited. Afterwards we lay entwined, our bodies slick with sweat, our breaths mingling in the air. A comfortable silence settled between us, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a tenderness I wasn't expecting. "I've never felt anything like this before," he confessed, his voice husky. I traced the lines of his face, the faint shadow of a beard, the mischievous glint in his eyes. "Neither have I," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. The forbidden fruit, I realized with a jolt, tasted sweeter than I could have ever imagined. The following days were a blur of stolen moments, clandestine meetings, and whispered conversations. Our affair, fueled by guilt and adrenaline, took on a life of its own. We met in discreet corners of the office, in the hushed confines of hotel rooms, in the quiet solitude of his apartment. Each encounter was a whirlwind of passion, a desperate attempt to satiate a hunger that seemed to grow with each passing day. My life, once so predictable, had been thrown into disarray. The carefully constructed facade of my perfect marriage was crumbling, replaced by a thrilling, dangerous game of cat and mouse. I found myself anticipating his touch, his gaze, the way his name rolled off my tongue, a forbidden whisper. My days were a constant battle between guilt and exhilaration, between the familiar comfort of my marriage and the intoxicating thrill of our illicit affair. The comparison to my husband was inevitable. With Ethan, there was a raw, animalistic intensity that was completely absent from my marriage. Sex with my husband had become a chore, a mechanical act devoid of emotion. With Ethan, it was a symphony of passion, a dance of bodies and souls. He was not just a lover, he was an intellectual equal, a stimulating conversation partner. We discussed art, philosophy, politics, our conversations ranging from the profound to the mundane. He challenged my assumptions, pushed me to think outside the box, ignited a spark of intellectual curiosity that had long since been dormant. My husband, a man of science, preferred the comfort of predictable routines. He found intellectual discourse tiresome, preferring to unwind with medical journals or the latest sports news. With Ethan, I felt alive, vibrant, truly seen. He made me feel beautiful, desired, cherished. He awakened a part of me I thought I had lost, a part that craved passion, adventure, and a connection that went beyond the superficial. But with each stolen moment, the guilt gnawed at me. I was betraying my husband, the man who had given me everything: a comfortable life, financial security, a veneer of respectability. The weight of my betrayal began to weigh heavily on me, a constant, insidious companion. I tried to push it aside, to focus on the exhilarating thrill of our affair, but the guilt remained, a persistent shadow lurking beneath the surface. The inevitable confrontation arrived like a storm cloud on the horizon, casting a long, ominous shadow over my life. My husband, a man of routine and predictability, had begun to notice the subtle shifts in my behavior, the distracted glances, the late nights at the office, the sudden disinterest in his company. He confronted me one evening, his voice laced with concern. "You've been distant lately, darling. Is something wrong?" I fumbled for an excuse, a flimsy veil to conceal the truth. "It's just, work has been demanding lately. A new project, you know how it is." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, a flicker of suspicion in their depths. He knew me too well, this man who had spent the last 2 decades mapping the intricate pathways of my heart. "Is it someone else?" he asked, his voice a low growl. The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, the truth a bitter pill I was no longer able to swallow. "No," I lied, my voice trembling. "Of course not." But the lie tasted like ashes in my mouth. The truth, like a venomous serpent, coiled within me, threatening to slither out and expose me for the fraud I had become. The confrontation had ignited a fire within me, a desperate need to break free from the suffocating confines of my marriage. The forbidden thrill of my affair, once a dangerous secret, now felt like a lifeline, a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness of my life. My husband, sensing my growing distance, redoubled his efforts to win back my affection. He showered me with gifts: planned romantic getaways, even tried to rekindle the spark in our bedroom. But his efforts felt hollow, a desperate attempt to salvage a sinking ship. The guilt, once a nagging whisper, now roared like a tempest within me. I was betraying not just my husband, but the vows I had so solemnly sworn. I was betraying myself, compromising my integrity for a fleeting thrill. Yet, the pull of the forbidden, the intoxicating allure of my affair with Ethan, proved too strong to resist. He was a whirlwind, a force of nature, sweeping me away on a tide of passion and adventure. One evening, as we lay entwined, the city lights twinkling below us like a million distant stars, he looked at me, his eyes filled with a profound intensity. "I want you," he said, his voice husky. "All of you." His words resonated deep within me, stirring a longing I hadn't known existed. I wanted him too, with a desperation that bordered on obsession. "I want you too," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He leaned in, his lips brushing against mine. "Let's leave," he murmured. "Leave it all behind. We can start over, just the two of us." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken promises. The thought of leaving, of escaping the confines of my suffocating marriage, was both terrifying and exhilarating. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. This was it, the crossroads, the moment of truth. I could choose safety, the familiar comfort of my marriage, the illusion of stability. Or I could choose passion, adventure, a life lived on my own terms. The decision, I knew, would change the course of my life forever, but as I looked into Ethan's eyes, a reflection of my own longing mirrored back at me. I knew what I had to do. The divorce was messy, a public spectacle that played out in the tabloids and on the evening news. My husband, a man of impeccable reputation, was devastated, his carefully constructed image shattered. The whispers followed me everywhere, the scornful glances, the hushed conversations, the pitying stares. My family, initially supportive, turned away, unable to reconcile themselves to my scandalous behavior. My friends one by one distanced themselves, their loyalty tested and found wanting. I felt like a pariah, ostracized from the society I had once inhabited. But with Ethan, I found solace. He was my rock, my confidant, my lover. He held me close when the world turned against me, offering a haven of comfort and understanding. We moved away from the city, a fresh start in a quiet coastal town. The initial euphoria of our newfound freedom soon faded, replaced by the harsh realities of our unconventional life. The whispers followed us, even to this remote corner of the world. Our relationship, once a source of intoxicating freedom, now felt like a cage, confining us to a life of isolation. The initial passion, fueled by rebellion and the thrill of the forbidden, began to wane. The comfortable routines of daily life crept in, replacing the exhilarating chaos of our early days together. We argued, petty squabbles erupting over the most mundane of issues. The idealized image of our life together, once so alluring, began to crumble, revealing the cracks beneath the surface. Ethan, once the epitome of youthful energy, began to chafe under the constraints of our unconventional life. He missed the excitement of his career, the thrill of the corporate ladder. He felt stifled, his ambitions stifled by our self-imposed exile. I, too, felt a pang of regret. The freedom I had so desperately craved had come at a steep price. I had lost my friends, my family, my reputation. My career, once a source of pride, lay in ruins. And yet, despite the challenges, there was love. A deep, abiding love that transcended the initial passion, the exhilarating thrill of the forbidden. We learned to navigate the complexities of our relationship, to compromise, to forgive. We learned to build a life together, brick by brick, despite the obstacles. We found solace in the beauty of our surroundings, the crashing waves, the endless horizon. We rediscovered the joy of simple pleasures, long walks on the beach, quiet evenings by the fire, the shared laughter of our children. Years passed, The initial wounds healed, leaving faint scars. We were no longer the rebellious lovers, caught in the whirlwind of a forbidden passion. We were a family, imperfect and unconventional, but deeply connected. Looking back, I see the path I have chosen as a tapestry woven with threads of joy and regret, of triumph and despair. I lost much, but I also gained a deeper understanding of myself, a newfound appreciation for the complexities of love, and the courage to defy societal expectations. I learned that true freedom is not about breaking free from constraints, but about forging your own path, however unconventional, and living authentically without compromise. The journey has been arduous, filled with unexpected twists and turns, but it has also been a profound and transformative experience. And as I look into Ethan's eyes, the love that still burns between us, a quiet, enduring flame, I know that despite the scars, we have found a measure of peace.